There were people asking, well, how much of a mix should be performed? I think it's not that performing something is better than programming something. That's not what we're saying at all. It's that music is a form of art that is about performance. And so even if you are doing everything 100% in the box with clicking, understanding how and why music is created in a performative nature is really important. So for me, understanding what it feels like to sweep a synthesizer is going to make me better at drawing it in when I need to do that.
And make me better at mixing that move.
Exactly.
Maybe
so
enhancing it with saturation later, after, just because
that's
I know
exactly
what
where I was going with it. Like understanding that when you're, and even like understanding the live element, when you're at a show and something gets super loud, and understanding the physiology of your ears and things are going to distort in your ears and compress, adding that little bit of saturation on that vocal when you're listening at a low volume when you're mixing helps you understand what the effect of this part is supposed to be and how it's performed. That's it's a really important aspect of whatever you're doing.
I think it's missing in most music. Opposite to what I was just mixing, which is fully performed. A lot of the record was a live marimba, and the chorus was played differently than the verse. The part was different. The second chorus was different than the first chorus. And these are things that I'm commenting on out loud because it shocked me because I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah.
I was like, my brain actually wanted the continuous nature of the verse marimba to be in the chorus. And I even thought about copying and pasting it there just because the human brain kind of wants this repetitive, hypnotic approach to production these days. But like I resisted the idea to do that. And instead, I changed the focus to a piano in the chorus and the background vocals and kind of lean into that. And that's performative in mixing, not riding the fader. It's like it is kind of riding the fader, but in the box where you're drawing automation, I'm considering the performance and the nature of the arrangement as we always talk about. But it was wild to me to hear that it was such a completely different part. It almost sounded empty. But then when I shifted the perspective and the piano and the thicker keyboard sounds up in the chorus, it just changed the emotion of the chorus. Like, oh, that's cool. And like, that's just not how music is being made right now. And like, for someone that's a mix engineer who mixes hundreds of songs a year, like I have an interesting vantage point to even make that comment. It's like a lot of the songs are just blocked out like that. So something like this stands out. That's why we need to talk about this. I mean, I'm missing, like, the vocals were completely different in every chorus. I don't remember the last time I mixed a song that the choruses weren't flown, or just it wasn't different enough to even realize if it was or not. Like maybe like a syllable was different in the
right,
or, and I wouldn't know. But this was clearly a different performance. Like the same melody, but there were just different emphases, right? There were different harmonies, different ad libs, and things that made it feel like a journey. This is inspiring. 2-day mix. Normally mixes are like 4 to 6 hours or sometimes less. This was a 2-day mix. It was exciting. It was that's performative to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think about? Well, somebody in the chat said producing made me a better mixer, and I think there's something it's totally true. And I think there's something interesting about that topic. Tell me what you think about this. I haven't thought through this. It's just kind of off the top.
Let's do it.
But given that the technical knowledge is, let's go back to like the 60s. Engineers at Abbey Road wearing white lab coats. They were like engineers. They were technical guys. They knew, that was what they did. Engineering wasn't nearly the creative job that it became. Maybe Jeff Emmerich changed that sort of that era, engineering as a musical contribution. But initially engineering was electrical engineering, a technical thing. And although we talk about the importance of understanding lots of those fundamentals, because everybody has the ability to record something simple on their laptop, get a few $100 interface and a USB mic and make hit records, really. Does it mean that engineering is more than ever, it's important even if you're just a mix engineer to understand music more than perhaps you did in something like 1960, that it is important if you are a mix engineer to not be able to produce like you have to show up and produce, but understand what it is to do all that stuff.
Yeah,
to make records and perform.
This could take hours to unpack. I love that. This is my life. So twice this week, I had a FaceTime with 2 different producers, both of which said, I hire, in their own words, but one of them I think was exactly this, I hire you to mix because you're a producer.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you have to be a producer to be a great mixer. So I'll start there. I think that you should develop relationships with producers that would allow you to go into the room and see what it's like to create as a producer on that level, or as a songwriter. If you've never been in the room in a creative process, it's hard to speak the language.
That's a really big point. Let's in order to communicate with the people that you're going to be working with, it's important to play that role at least at some point.
Well, I know I can feel through the production while I'm mixing the moment where everybody in the room jumped off the couch and was like, "That's the melody," or like, "That's the part." I can feel it most of the time, and it's probably not real, but like it's a memory that I have that I can get back to.
It's an association you have with the process that comes from experience.
Yeah. Like when I get chills when something happens, I know 4 people in that room or 2 people or 10 people got the same feeling. So I want to maintain that feeling and elevate it if possible, or just allow it to be, right? So I was actually a part of this conversation yesterday morning with an engineer on the phone for an hour. It was like, I kind of want to write my own audio school curriculum. I think of it as a joke, and I'm hearing this and I'm like, maybe I should do it. And the one I said to him was talking like an artist, like being an engineer that talks like an artist. Learn how to speak the color languages, the visceral emotional connections, not the 2K, 3K compression, like all these jargon things we talked about last week. But this is like another class. That's like one class. That's like, this is once a week, and I do 3 classes a week. And the second one now is like mixing like a producer. And like, for example, I pitched down a drum loop 8 semitones on this mix yesterday, and I changed the swing of the tambourine. Probably shouldn't talk about that. I was told that the drums feel so much better now. Like, they sounded fucking weird. They didn't sound thick. They were taking up the same space as the vocal. And as soon as they went down, I mean, 8's a lot. It's usually like 2, 1 or 2. 8's a lot. But it just started sounding like a richer kind of like Kanye track from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And he's crunchier, like clipping the drums a little bit, and just less clean, less compressed, and more full and low. You know, that's not a mix engineer's job. But I'm feeling the record, not even hearing it. I'm feeling it a certain way, and I'm looking for it. And that's from being in the room with someone that was like, yo, what if we just pitch that down an octave? And it's like, it's just not a mixer move. If you think about a mixer move, you're just going to boost a lot of low end to get that kick to hit, versus placing it lower in the arrangement, in the spectrum, in the sonic spectrum, and then it hits right because it just wasn't the right pitch. That's thinking like a producer. So I would love to teach classes on an approach to this. And I think that's what we're doing here. Yes. But I think it's a language game, and it's an understanding. I don't think you have to be a producer to be a good mixer. I think it very much informs feel, groove, and arrangement to have been in those rooms.
Man, there's so much in that that's so interesting, and like
I could go on for hours with this. This is a
well. We've got to let's do this for another bunch of years.
I think I know. Well, I think what we're really getting down to is that, and I did actually write a paper on this, which I'm pretty sure the role of engineer is shifting. And I'm not saying I talk about the lines being blurred between the production and the mix, but I think that the only thing that separates the production and the mix is when a producer or a manager, someone says it's time to mix. Yeah. That's the only line that is crossed to say it's now time to mix. Or like, you're doing some sort of design process, and it's like it's time to render it and move on to the next step of distribution, right? Like, it's just language at that point. But for me, I'm only thinking about the production when I'm mixing. I'm not thinking about the mix process. That's just my role.
Yep.
So I think we should always mix musically and consider the feel of the record, not how it sounds always.